Welcome to the Common Man Football Show. My name is James Coburn, and today's episode is a question from Tyrese Wilson. It says, "Can you do Byron Jones, please?" Sure. We can do Byron Jones. Byron Jones, of course, the cornerback / safety from Connecticut, drafted by the Dallas Cowboys. And there was a lot of, he was a guy that had a lot of hype in terms of athleticism data, which he is an amazing athlete, and I'm actually going to go down his data when we get into his profile. But there was also a lot of talk about, well, are they overvaluing him? Is he just a combine wonder? There's all that sort of stuff with him in terms of, well, he just tested great as an athlete, but he's not a great football player and all this kind of stuff. But we're going to get into his data. We're going to get into how he looked in college in terms of his production, how he looked in college in terms of how he looked as an athlete coming out, and then, of course, how he's looked in the NFL thus far based on one full season of data that I have on him, which is 2016, where he performed really well last year, despite some of the nobody really paying attention to him for whatever reason, which he's on the Dallas Cowboys, so it's kind of funny. But yeah, so in terms of the data points I'm going to be talking about, or at least the metrics, if you're not familiar with any of this stuff, I'm going to leave in the description terms and definitions in terms of market share data, explosive alert body strength score, speed score, and flexibility score. If those terms aren't very familiar with those terms, then you can just check the description for the definitions. If you still don't really have an idea of what I'm talking about, go to any of the past videos I've done. At least maybe the first 100 I've done. I pretty much go into detail about the data that I use and the methodology that I use. And if you still don't really understand, then you can just leave a comment below, and I'll be happy to answer whatever question you may have about the methodology or how I got to these numbers and all that other kind of stuff. So with all that stuff out of the way, let's get to Byron Jones. Starting with his athleticism data, or not his athleticism, excuse me, but his production data. And this is his data as a safety, because he did play safety at UConn. He had a 69.75 solo tackle market share score, a 71.92 interception market share score, and a 91.52 pass deflection market share score. Based on my data since the 1989 NFL draft class, actually, this is compared to free safeties, by the way, not strong safety types, but compared to free safety types, he pretty much hits every single threshold you're looking for in terms of a Pro Bowl safety. Hits the pass deflection market share score of at least the bottom end threshold for Pro Bowlers. Hits the interception market share score for the bottom end Pro Bowlers. And the only real issue he has is just his solo tackle market share, because he has a 69.75, but the bottom end threshold for Pro Bowl types is 70.34. However, it's pretty dang close. So it's within the margin of error in terms of the solo tackle market share. I wouldn't hold that against him because it's just kind of right there in terms of his data. So I wouldn't say that that's the biggest deal in the world, but the basic thing I can really conclude is that his production really looks like a potential Pro Bowl player, multiple Pro Bowl player type coming out based on his production profile. So I think there's lots of positives with him in terms of that sort of aspect of the position. And then when you actually get to his athleticism data, which is one of the big reasons why he shot up the draft boards, of course, is that he had a 99.14 explosive alert body strength score, 89.82 speed score, and 95.70 flexibility score. As you can see by all the multiple thresholds you see right here, he pretty much hits every single threshold you could imagine when it comes to all-pro potential, Pro Bowl potential, and of course starter potential when it comes to his overall athleticism data. So, he's a great athlete. I mean, there's really nothing really much else to say. Had a very good explosive alert body strength score, which is very heavily influenced by the vertical he did, on top of a decent speed score and a decent flexibility score. So as an athlete, he pretty much can do anything. He could play cornerback if he wanted to. He doesn't have to play safety. So I just think it's kind of funny that people put so much stock into athleticism data and DBs for whatever reason, and then they're like, well, I think he's more of a safety. Well, I think he's more of a quarterback. I mean, in Byron Jones's case, he could play any defensive back position. There's nothing he really can't do. And this just kind of speaks to the point that athleticism, in many ways, is not really the best sort of litmus test for how amazing a player is, as much as the litmus test for what he can do on a football field. What can you ask of him to do task-wise? Can he play man coverage? Can he play zone coverage? Can he hold up against the run? There's all these sort of things that go through your mind when it comes to a safety in particular, and all athleticism data really does is give you sort of a perspective of what can you ask him to do, what are some of his limitations. If you're an offensive coordinator looking at this data as well, you're looking at, okay, can I test this guy with this particular player? Like, I have a player who runs 4.3 and your guy runs 4.6. Let me see what happens if I try to dial something up to kind of exploit that liability or that potential liability. So in Byron Jones' case, again, athleticism data-wise, nothing really to think badly about. And then when you get to his actual NFL season, when it comes to 2016, which is the only season where I have a full amount of data on him, for the most part, he performed exceptionally well. Had a 96.38 total target market share score, 67.68 interception market share score, and a 98.23 pass deflection market share score, giving him a total impact score of 95.45 out of 100, which is amazing. He was really dang good last year, and in fact, if you look at the top 10 performers in 2016 at the safety position, Byron Jones was the second most impactful safety in the 2016 season. Had high amounts of solo tackle market share, high amounts of pass deflection market share, and only had kind of a low amount of interception market share score. And the only real reason why he probably didn't go or get more accolades and stuff like that is just because of his interception market share. A lot of times, and you can kind of tell, guys like Clinton Dix got a ton of interceptions, Landon Collins got a ton of interceptions, but as you can clearly see, Byron Jones and Clinton Dix are very comparable in terms of their production, with Byron Jones just being a little bit better in terms of pass deflection market share and in terms of his solo tackle market share. So in many ways, I think Byron Jones has a lot of potential because he put up a really dang good season in terms of a safety. Now there is some other sort of stuff to this. Maybe he had a lot of solo tackle market share and stuff like that because the Dallas Cowboys defense is just not that great, the basic way to explain it is what I've noticed a lot is safeties typically produce a lot, especially solo tackle market share, when they're on defenses where the linebacker group is not very robust. The defensive tackle group isn't very robust, so they just get into this position where they're the last man standing as a safety, and they end up eating a lot of what everybody else misses, because the fact that your safety is producing a lot isn't necessarily either they're a great safety who's just able to read and react to everything they're seeing and perfectly and just being completely synchronized with everything, or they're on a team that's just bad and they're the last man standing, and as a result of being the last man standing, they end up getting all the sort of plays that the other guys couldn't make, whether it's linebackers or sort of positions like that. I'm willing more to take the approach of saying that he's a little bit of both. I think he's a good safety in terms of his production out of college. He definitely has great athleticism data. I think that I'm not going to take the leap and just say that he's the second best safety in the NFL or a top 5 safety or anything else like that, because in many ways I don't like to say that unless they consistently put up this type of production in the future. So Byron Jones continues to produce like this next year and the year after that, at least maybe 3 seasons in a row, then I'll be more willing to take that data and use that data as a sort of tool to say, look, he's done this 3 years in a row, he's a top 5 safety, if that makes any sense. So I'm not really ready to take that leap of faith yet on Byron Jones, but I do think that there is enough positives in terms of his profile to say that there's a bright future for him. So I'm very excited to see how he kind of develops and all those sort of things. So the bottom line is, in conclusion about Byron Jones, when you look at his data profile and you look at all these sort of aspects of him, you see a player that hit at least the Pro Bowl thresholds when it comes to his production at Connecticut. All on top of that, had great to amazing athleticism profile data. Like his explosive lower body strength was amazing. He had a fairly decent speed score and also had a fairly decent flexibility score as well. Pretty much hitting every single sort of thing you could imagine that you would want a safety to be. Like, safeties in many ways, you don't need them to be amazing athletes. You just need them to be very good in terms of specific sort of things. And extra athleticism is actually a bonus, and I think that kind of explains Byron Jones, is that his athleticism is so great that you get a little bonus with it because of having that extra bit of explosiveness and that extra bit of flexibility. Definitely helps to help safeties out, especially safeties that may be a little bit raw in terms of certain things, or a bit inexperienced as well. So I think Byron Jones, in terms of all that stuff, looks very well. And of course, when you look at his actual NFL season, where he was able to produce at the safety position, he performed exceptionally well based on his data. So I think the future's pretty bright for Byron Jones. I think the best case scenario, you'll see him either develop into a multiple Pro Bowl safety, or he might just stay a long-term starting safety. But the bottom line is, I think you have a guy that can hold that position for the foreseeable future. And then it's just a matter of seeing how much better he can improve upon and get better, and all that kind of stuff. So again, my name is James Coburn. You can find my work at draftcoburn.wordpress.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Geometrics. And if you like this content and you want more content like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Share this video as well if anybody that you know, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.